Hi, this is Larry with ManCave Mayhem. Today I'm doing a real quick impromptu video on my cargo e-bike. I got this e-bike about a year ago and been using this at the beach a lot, so we needed to put a basket on this. And I wanted a front basket, and they sold a basket kit. So I bought the basket kit and I haven't even bothered to open it up. So I figured today we will open this up and we're gonna just put the front basket on because we use that rear seat quite a bit. So that's what we're doing today. We'll get started on that right now. If you haven't yet, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. Check us out at Instagram at mancave_mayhem. Now let's get on with the video. All right, I'm gonna really quickly unbox this basket kit. I guess I don't know how it came. It came as a basket set. It's been over a year, so I don't know if they actually sell this. It came as a special offer or whatever, so I think it comes with two baskets, one for the back and one for the front. But I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys what came in this. Like I said, I don't even really know what is in this setup. This looks like the front. I think this is a rack for the front, which we may end up just putting on. Then we've got, looks like some extension cables for the, I'm assuming this is for the headlight. So yeah, we got an extension cable for the headlight, because I'm sure you're gonna relocate the headlight. There's some hardware here and an Allen key. Then the next one, and I think the way this works is actually, it's a rack that you can attach a front basket to if you so desire. So I think that's how that works. So this is the front basket right here. It's pretty nice, pretty good quality for, I really didn't spend that much. They're heavy and nicely powder coated, or if they're painted, it's painted well. Anyhow, this is the basket that goes on to the rack. So I'll set that aside. I'll show that to you guys later. Then this would be the rear basket here, which we won't be using today. I'll pull it out of the packaging anyhow so you can kind of see it. It's a pretty good sized basket. I mean, you could haul tons of crap on this bike. I'll try and get some measurements of these after I'm done doing the video towards the end there, but this is the rear basket. So you get a front basket, a rear basket, and a front rack. So, and the way that works is the front rack actually allows the basket to be attached to it. So you can, it's not a quick release system or anything, but you can bolt the basket to it if you so desire, or just leave it as a front rack. So that's what comes in the kit. So I'm going to place this back in because we're not going to be installing the rear basket. I also wanted to show you, so this is the basket. I'll show you the rack. We'll bust this front rack out. Also comes with some instructions, I'm sure. It's pretty straightforward stuff, but there's a set of instructions with this. All right, unbeknownst to me, I lost all audio, so I'm kind of just rambling on here about the rack and the quality of it, obviously. This rack and basket system is really well made. We also have the directions that come with it, and they're very simple, easy to follow directions. I'll be going through some of those as I did lose sound. I will be reading off some of those directions to you as we get further on in the video. But basically, that's it for the front rack that we'll be installing with the basket. All right, so now we are going to measure the front basket, which is approximately 11.5 inches square is basically what we're looking at there. 11.5, 12 inches. And then the depth of that, I believe, is about 6 inches deep. So it's a pretty roomy front basket. The rack itself is about 10 inches wide, approximately. And from the front to the back, I don't know if I can get that for you, about 14 inches front to back. So that'll give you kind of a basic idea of what we're looking at there for the front rack and basket. All right, so the measurements of the rear rack are as follows: about 13 inches deep or wide by 17.5 inches wide, and then again 6 inches deep on that rack. So it's a pretty spacious rack for the back, and it looks very simple to hook up, and I can kind of show you the connection points where that rack is to be hooked up. Okay, so this is the mounting point. These are the mounting points right here, where when you remove the seat, that's where the rear rack would go. And it can go either direction, I believe. I think you can mount it one way or the other. I'm just assuming that by the pattern on the holes on the rack itself. So I think you got options there as far as mounting. So that's kind of how that works on that rear. Even though I'm not showing you how to do it, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so the most technical part of this whole thing is going to be the light. You're going to have to disconnect your light. I have an upgraded light. So anyhow, we got to remove that fender bolt and nut, or Allen head bolt and nut. We're going to remove that and pull the fender off and take the light off. We'll leave that light dangling, and then we will move on to the next step. You see there's a nut back here. And so we'll get that taken off and we'll move to the next step, and I'll show you how that's done. Okay, now you're going to need a 10 millimeter open end wrench and a 6 millimeter Allen key to remove this. Now the light's off to the side. We'll hang it down there. Reattach the fender with the same bolt. Make sure you pull the fender up, keep it tight. Now we're going to remove these 4 front Allen head bolts. This will be with the 6 millimeter wrench, and then we're going to place that rack on it loosely. I accidentally put the rack on, tightened it up, and didn't route the cables. So you do need to make sure you route those cables behind that hook on the rack before you tighten the rack down. So get those off.
Don't wanna sleep in, cause I got something to prove. I gotta take what I hate and finally make a move. I think of you and all the...
All right, I mounted the rack prematurely. I got a little anxious. So what you want to do is actually probably expose that wiring harness first, and I'll show you how to do that here in a little bit further on in the video. But you want that harness routed behind the rack on the provided hook back there that's kind of encased in plastic to protect the harness. But in the meantime, I just kind of left the rack there. All right, I've mounted the rack, and now we need to focus on this cable. I should have ran the cable around the hook on the rack, and I didn't, so I will do that off camera. But what we're focusing on now is the wiring harness. This wiring harness is a big pain in the butt, and I found that I think they could have done it a little better, but I guess they didn't want to run it through the handlebars. So that they got this plastic sheath that goes over it that's a pain to get into. So what I'm doing is cutting a little section of that so I can unravel it. It's kind of like barber pulled around the existing wiring. So we got to expose the wiring for the light so we can add the extension cable that came with the light to bring the light out in front of the basket when we mount the basket. So that's what we're going to do right now. We'll go ahead and get that started, and we'll get that put back the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so make sure when you're routing this wiring menagerie that you get it behind the hook before you mount the basket. I didn't do that. As you can see, it really looks funky, and I feel like it's going to bind up, but it'll probably be fine. You just need to be careful about how you route that cable behind the basket. But first of all, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to disconnect this right here. Enough to get it loosened up to where I can get that cable back behind there. But first I'm going to add that extension cord, or whatever you want to call it, for the headlight. So we're going to do that right now, and I'll get back with you. There's the extension cord. So I'm going to mount that on there right now, and we'll get back with you. Okay, now you can kind of see how this stuff works. It kind of wraps around,
the cables or the wires, and so you just kind of have to unwrap it like this until you expose the plug, which is right here. You can see in the picture, and you want to get that just exposed enough to where you can unplug the light and plug in that extension harness that came with the kit. So we got it now. We got it unplugged, and it's kind of tough to get this thing unplugged. So kind of work with it a little bit. Don't get over anxious, because that thing is freaking tight. And once you get it loose, I mean, they want that thing to stay plugged in. So just be careful when you pull it apart, and don't get crazy on it. Don't pull on the wire. Keep your hands around the plastic housing to pull it apart. So that would be my recommendation. They provide you with like 2 harness extensions, but I'm probably going to not mount it there at the bottom of the rack. I think I'm going to mount mine to the basket, because I won't be taking the basket off. So that's what we're going to do. That's the one that came originally with the bike, and it honestly, I couldn't tell the difference between the bonus light and the little light. Maybe you guys could let me know in the comments below, but the little light almost looks a little cleaner. I might end up putting it back on later. But right now we're going to mount the big, crazy looking reflective bonus light, or heavy duty light, or whatever they want to call it. And I'm not quite sure which direction I want to mount it, but it'll probably go either upside down like this, or I'll use the shorter armature to mount it to the front of the basket. And that's what I think I'll do. I like the way this is set up better. So I'm not going to use the other parts, and I'm going to mount it with this shorter armature that came with the standard light. So that's probably the way it's going to be. I might mount it up facing the other way, sticking out. All right, so what I've done here is rerouted that wire harness behind the rack as it was supposed to be done. It doesn't seem to be binding at all, and it kind of puts that harness out of the way, which I actually like better than the way it was before. It was sticking way out and driving me crazy. So in the bag you get Allen screws that and an Allen wrench that threads right on to the rack itself. So the basket actually threads onto it. There's no nuts on the backside or anything, so it's just it's threaded. And I thought this might be a little weak, but it seems pretty solid once you get it on. So yeah, so that's what I'm showing you here is basically it just threads right into the rack itself. Pretty easy on and off, 4 bolts, 4 Allen bolts. So not a hard install by any means. So that's what we're gonna go ahead and do now, is get the rack on. All right, so I put some blue Loctite on this because this bike is kind of vibey because there's no suspension on it. So I don't want the rack rattling off with groceries in it or something. So now we've got that rack mounted up really well. Now we're going to try and determine how we want to route the harness for the light. And also I can show you underneath here how those thread right through into the rack. So that's kind of what's going on there. So now the next step is we're going to just kind of check, make sure the clearance is okay. It kind of gets a little bit of rub there, but nothing crazy, not while you're riding. So it actually is routed pretty good for the way that is set up. Next step, we're going to run the harness and mount the light. Okay, there's a few more bits of miscellaneous hardware. There's 4 bolts for the rear rack, and also bolt and some washers and a nut for the headlight, which I am putting on, and you can see that, and that's kind of how they come. So we're going to mount that headlight right now onto the rack itself, and there she is. Isn't that quick and nice? Anyhow, I chose to have it there. I'm going to mount it there. Now I've got the wiring harness ran underneath the rack, and I'm using the 2 provided zip ties. And I'm just checking for clearance right now. That's why they're loose. But once I get it figured out to where there's nothing binding or pulling on that, then I will tighten those zip ties up and trim them up and take off the extra tail on those zip ties, and once that's done, we pretty much have a finished, completed rack ready for use.
All right, I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on this rack. We've had this bike down at the beach for 3 weeks, and we used the heck out of this rack. This is how I decided to mount the Lite, and so far it's been fantastic. We put luggage, groceries, all kinds of crap in it, and it's worked out really well. We've ridden this bike down to the beach and sat it in the sand and kind of abused the hell out of it this last trip, and it's worked really well. I'm happy with it so far, and that's gonna about wrap it up for this install video. If you haven't yet, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. Check us out at Instagram at ManCave_mayhem. And just remember, folks, I'm just a man in a cave causing mayhem. Thanks again for watching.